the inn burned down and they were like, okay, I guess we'll just start over. I was like, what is wrong with this girl? Just go get a job. Like,
Welcome to Richer Lives by SoFi. I'm Vivian Tu, aka Your Rich BFF, and today I'm joined by everyone's favorite fast-talking, coffee-loving icon, Lauren Graham.
Hi.
Lauren, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So before we get into your story, before we start talking dollars and cents, I'm sure you've been asked the team, Dean, Jess, Logan question a million times, but I want to put a little bit of a Richer Lives spin on it. Of the three, who do you think was the best with money?
Logan, because he comes from money, which doesn't always guarantee. Yeah. But immediately when you said that, I'm picturing like who now is sitting on a pile of money, and I think it's probably Logan.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I don't think it's Dean or Jess.
Although it could have been inherited, which I don't know. Yeah. Does that count in the same way?
What if he got written out of the will?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We may never know.
We don't. So take me back to the beginning, before your big break, before building a career. Growing up, what was your family's relationship with money?
I had an allowance and had to work if I wanted extra. I had a paper route. I worked one summer in a hair salon. Like I just, for whatever reason, grew up with a sense that it was important for me to make my own money. But in about 8th grade, we moved from one neighborhood to another, and it was a much wealthier neighborhood. And I went to somebody's house and like all their silverware matched. And I like didn't even know that was a thing because we didn't have that. So I remember being aware of it kind of around high school.
As a little kid, did you have a dream about when Lauren grows up, Lauren will be a astronaut, teacher, anything?
I was really into horses as a kid, and animals in general. So I think the first dream was to be a veterinarian. And then I remember we took a trip to New York and I saw mounted policemen. And I was like, that's a great job where you can both be on a horse and have a job. I mean, I had been doing talent shows and plays and stuff from the time I was a little kid, but it was around like 7th, 8th grade where I really thought, that is a career too. And maybe that could be mine.
Wow. From mounted police woman to actress is a crazy shift. When you actually, started going down that route, did you think it was something that was going to pay off financially, or were you just taking a leap of faith?
I did tend to have a vision for just the next step. I don't think I walked around thinking I'd be sitting here today or anything like it, but I thought maybe I could get a commercial and then maybe I could get a few lines on a soap. So I did always think about what would be the next step. You have easier and more difficult times, but I made a commercial and that set me up for, they don't pay this way anymore, but especially how I was living at the time, that set me up for months. Yeah. And so it was a bigger reward.
Yeah. It gave you runway.
Yeah. It gave you relief, which as a person in the arts, no matter who you are, you're never sure. You're never guaranteed the next season or the next anything. So yeah, it gave a literal money in the bank.
Talk to me a little bit about that. You mentioned relief. Like when you're in this early stage of your career, how do you decide what jobs you're doing, what you're passing on, or can you even afford to pass on anything?
You don't pass on anything. You just are so thankful. I think it's still a surprise. I mean, it's still, it's for all the things that have to come together to be offered something is just never anything I take for granted. I do remember because for just money, I would sometimes work as background player on a commercial. I worked the toy fair where you're demonstrating a toy. I was a World Cup soccer mascot for a convention where like you have to wear, the big costume. And so I was like, yes, money, I'll do whatever I have to do. Yeah. Within reason.
Do you think that, just through the digging, to get your MFA, you had to take on some student loans? Did that contribute to your stress and your willingness to be the mascot and do some of these odd jobs?
Well, it was college, actually. Yeah. That was the student loans. The MFA, the reason I could go is because I got a scholarship. Okay. And it was a very well-endowed program that brought me out of New York and to Dallas, Texas, to SMU, which is just so interesting because you don't necessarily think of that school as an artistic school, but because it's so successful in its other undergrad departments, they can afford to extend these scholarships. But I was paying off the loans for many years. But that was the only way I could have gone to grad school. And I did that because I was working so many jobs in New York. I thought, this is a grind. I might never get off. I could be waitressing and working retail and tutoring and for years. And I thought, what if I break this cycle and kind of come at it another way? Because I didn't expect to leave New York. All those years I had dreamed of coming to New York. And I was like, I'm leaving New York to go to Dallas, Texas? It doesn't make any sense, but it did financially.
Yeah. Was there ever a moment where the financial pressure got to be so bad that you were like, I don't know, and just like you questioned continuing?
It was the beginning years were the roughest because for several years out of grad school, I really didn't work. And I had all these other jobs. I did begin to get a little bit here and there and, enough to think, okay, well, I haven't worked in 6 months, but I did get that one thing. And, I got close to this other thing. So I always, coming up as an actor is very different now, but you have to be getting some sort of feedback. Otherwise, it's like some guy who's not calling you back. Like you can't keep, it has to be a conversation of like, am I getting a response from this world that is going to encourage me enough to keep going?
You got to make sure that you send the Google feedback form. It can't be just getting ghosted.
Yes, or whatever today's modern equivalent is. And, I did all the wrong things at one time or another. I got a credit card. I remember being with my grandmother shopping and she paid for something with a credit card. And I said, oh, how much do you have to pay, to get one of those? And she said, oh, nothing, they're free, which gave me the wrong impression that credit cards were like free.
Fake money.
And exactly. And so I got into credit card debt and, sort of had to shuffle some things around. There used to be these places where when you got a paycheck, you could like take it down to them. I'm sure they still exist in New York. Take it down and pay a huge fee to cash the check just so you could have the cash in hand. I did that all the time, which is not a good use of, but that's how on the edge I was, that I needed to cash the check to have the cash. Because I worked as a tutor and I worked as a waitress and tips were obviously very helpful. Because in order to get that first union job, you have to join the union. And I didn't have the money to join the union.
For the dues.
And my dad I borrowed it from my dad, which I had very rarely asked him for money because back then I just thought it's an insane thing to want to do this. It's insane. I can't put that on my parent. Like if I can't do this on my own, I shouldn't do it. But he gave me the money or loaned me the money and he wrote me a note and he was like, someday this will all be kind of a memory and I know you're going to do well.
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't know I was going to do well. I'm sure he was just hoping.
Yeah.
But those stretches can be long in between, and people always think once you get to a certain level, then you're just fielding offers. And, there aren't 20 Lorelai Gilmore parts out there. And I'm lucky that I got one of them. It actually makes the next one hard sometimes because you're like, oh, but I got to do this thing where the writing was so fantastic. And, they're not all that.
Yeah. All right, before we go any further, let's take a quick break to learn about another way SoFi can help you feel in control of your finances. Why should I switch banks? My bank is fine. Fine? We're accepting fine for our money now? Let's raise those standards, bestie. With SoFi, you get a savings APY that is way above the national average. 0 account fees, and your paycheck up to 2 days early. Open a SoFi bank account and set up eligible direct deposit, and you'll score a sweet APY boost for 6 months, plus a welcome bonus. You get all of this and more in just one app. So yeah, if you want your money to sit there being fine, stay where you are. But if you want to bank better, go to SoFi.com/banking. Speaking of Lorelai Gilmore, then everything changes. You get booked on Gilmore Girls, a show that ends up taking a life of its very own. My mom and I used to watch you together. We're big fans. When you first booked Gilmore Girls, what did it mean for you financially in that moment?
Nothing, because I had booked plenty of pilots that did not get picked up. And so actually I had learned how unlikely it was. And, I say this to people all the time, now the show looks like a foregone conclusion. It really was not then. It was on a network that was pretty new, whose biggest hit at the time was, had some success, had some, Dawson's Creek and Felicity. Yeah. And I do remember one of the big heads of the studio, once the show was up and running, came to visit my trailer and to introduce me to somebody. That has never happened since then. And I was like, oh, is this kind of a big deal? Like, there were so many examples of that when I was starting out. I thought somebody should write a handbook, but to be read by 20 people, because all these things that happen once you do get a job, once you do get a series, you don't know until after.
Yeah. You actually have to live it.
You have to live it to know how you would have lived it had you known.
Yeah. And at that point, you're still quite early in your career. Being offered that lead role is something that you dreamed of. Were you even in a position to be able to, negotiate that, or did you just take it and say, great?
At that point, I just took it. I think we renegotiated once during the show, but it was really difficult. And that was a time when the rumor was someone got fired off of a show because they negotiated too hard. Now, as somebody said to me at the time, they're not going to let go of one of the Gilmore Girls. It's literally called Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girl.
Yeah, but you don't know. These systems, again, are not in place to make you ask them for more money. They're in place to tell you in one way or another, you're getting enough. And it would always be like, also, we don't make any money on this show or something. And you'd think like, what are we all doing here then? So it's sort of hidden, you can't, there's no accounting where you can say, look, this is what I'm bringing you. Here's the percentage. This is what, is fair. So it's always tougher than you want it to be.
Yeah. At what point was it clear to you what the show might become?
Years after. Every year we never got a pickup for 2 years. We never were guaranteed. And the ratings were never that good because we were on a smaller network and opposite Friends and opposite these bigger shows. So really we went on in reruns on another network. And it wasn't until Netflix picked it up, and Netflix existed even, which it hadn't, that then I thought, oh, okay. And then they would come to me and say, you guys have no idea how huge you are in Germany or wherever. And it just kept growing.
Do you remember what you did with your first Gilmore Girls paycheck?
Well, by then I had worked a lot. So it wasn't the Gilmore Girls paycheck. I don't know that it was my highest one. Again, this is like a smaller network, and I'm still building my quote up. What I remember I did with my first paycheck, besides probably not go to the check cashing place and probably pay my rent, is I bought rollerblades. Because
what?
Yeah. It was 92 or 3 or 4 or something, and rollerblading was huge, and I was like, can't afford to spend. And that's sort of symbolic of like, oh, now I will spend money on something I'm doing just for fun, not just for survival, or not, getting a blazer to audition in or something. But here's like, I'm just going to do this because I have what my version at that time was of disposable income.
You got to do something instead of having to do something.
Exactly right.
Obviously, lots of success came. One, what did that feel like? And 2, did it shift your perception of like your worth in the industry, and kind of how you belonged in it?
Maybe briefly. It's always nice to go to an award show or to get nominated for something or to have a magazine shoot or all those things. And then after a while, you're like, it's not being in love. It's not being with your friends. It's not, I am lucky enough to have had enough of the stuff we look at and give, emphasis to, at best it's a fun party, or, I guess at best it's winning an Oscar or something, but like it actually shored me up more in terms of there's a distinction, like that's work. It's why it took so long to join social media. I was like, I don't want to meld too much my life and my work. I like them being, a little more separate. And then I think to your question, we have these ebbs and flows. You're never there and you're going to stay there and it's never going to change. And you're going to only keep having more and more and more. That's just not how life works. And that's not how the business works. So I've learned to ride those waves, I think.
Yeah. Success is only rented, never owned.
Truly, though. But I think it's so hard to say to somebody who has not yet gotten to do what they want most to do, your feet hurt at the end of the day. They're like, nobody wants to hear that. And it's not, it's only part of the truth, But yeah, it doesn't do everything.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give someone who's stepping into kind of a career-defining role right now?
Well, they're hard to recognize.
Yeah.
You don't always see them. I think in more traditional jobs, you get a title, you get a raise, you get a position, and you can see the difference between when you were an assistant or when you were starting out. In my work, and probably in all our work, it's always a better idea to save more than you think, and it's a balance in life, isn't it, between celebrating and being cautious.
Mm-hmm. Lorelai Gilmore, your character, is someone who comes from generational wealth, but was very much choosing to forge her own path. How did that reflect or not reflect, what you were going through at the same time with your relationship to money and independence?
She just seemed fine all the time, didn't she? Like the inn burned down and they were like, I guess we'll just start over. Similarly, I did always have a strong work ethic. When I got to a point where I had some savings, it raised more questions, which is, what do I do as then a single woman on this show? How do I take care of myself? How do I plan for the future? No one had ever talked about that. And one thing that's always been really important to me is real estate, but the empowerment it was a scary process. I didn't know anybody else my age who had bought something like that. I think I had some notion, I don't know from where, that you do that when you're ready to have a family. But I felt extremely empowered to get to the other side of that. And I learned a lot. And that was a moment where, you talk about making it or knowing you're sort of on the road, because I think most actors, most people don't have one aha moment. But I did remember, I would tell anybody I could. I was like, you should, if you have the money, invest in yourself, make this leap. And you can always, then you have options, then you have something you can sell.
Yeah. Did it ever feel lonely, being in that financial position, or were you having these money conversations with your friends and peers?
I think one of the toughest things to have is someone you can talk to about it. What I've noticed in the acting world, there are systems in place, right? There are representatives and there are entire companies that help you manage your money. They don't always think you want the education. I didn't know about investing. I didn't learn about interest rates, for example, because when I bought that house, interest rates were incredibly low. I didn't really know the difference, or that they could be so much higher, and that would affect the monthly. And I have had to educate myself and also ask more questions. And I'm not sure it's something that belongs in the realm of friends. I think it can be something that puts up a barrier in terms of people thinking they know, oh, she's got plenty of money, or she doesn't have any money. Or I think it's something to take to a book, a financial advisor, maybe a parent. But now I have a couple people who I can talk with about what's your plan. And because now we're all talking about retirement, and now we're all talking about, where's the safest place to have money, and, looking at in these unions, looking at what healthcare is covered, what retirement is covered, when to take that. So all of a sudden, because it was yesterday, I was buying rollerblades, and all of a sudden I'm talking about okay, what am I doing when I'm 60, 70, 80? And So I don't think you can have any of those conversations early enough. I think it's like, go talk to whoever you can.
Since you bring it up, retirement, what does like a perfect retirement look like for you?
I have a way more desire for a balanced life, whatever that is. You know, I feel that some of these jobs are just time consuming and challenging in the conditions. And what's happened in the last 5-10 years is fewer and fewer jobs are in the place I live, and I'm going on location and dealing with someone else's pots and pans and pillows or whatever, however I'm living in corporate housing, and my home is just really important to me. So wherever that is, I have really enjoyed working as a writer and having that as another skill that I can do wherever I am and that I can make my own hours. So I guess it's autonomy is really important. And, you know, in terms of fun, I mean, it's limitless. Like I don't get bored traveling or spending time working on my work or just being with my friends and family. Like I know some people get very antsy and don't have hobbies or really love the structure of work. I love the structure of not work. So I just have to figure out a way to pay for that. And you know, it's another world of the unknown. We don't know how long our health will last. We don't know. And so, you know, you make as good a guess as you can and save for that.
Lightning round, top 3 hobbies not work related.
Tennis, I'm terrible, but I really love it. Cooking, I also I don't know what it is. I've in my mind, I'm a contestant on Top Chef. You know, I feel I know I would make all the right decisions. So tennis, cooking, and reading. I consider that just like the most fun way to spend a day.
Yeah. The simple life.
I mean, except for tennis,
yeah,
which I should have started 30 years ago. I'd still be bad, but I'd be better.
When you look back on your Gilmore Girls experience now, what do you feel like it opened up for you in terms of opportunities or direction for your career?
I think it's still opening doors. I mean, it's something that I will, you know, that I do treasure, that I will treasure. It's brought me, you know, many close friendships. It connects me to this world when I meet a stranger who feels they know me or who wants to share an experience of what entertainment meant to them. I mean, I'm the same way. I treasure storytelling and reading and movies and TV and that I have gotten to be in someone's household in a way that made them happy is like the gift that keeps on giving. I just don't know where we go from here. Like, is it another generation? Is it like, at what point will someone be, you know, like, hey, you look like the 80-year-old version of the girl who was in that show? And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. You know, it's like, it's the strangest, most wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm. A little bit of a parasocial relationship before social media exists.
Yes. And it's always surprises me, you know, but it's something that has tended to bring happiness. So that's really nice.
After Gilmore Girls, how did you start to think about what you wanted to do next?
I remember being on a plane and Ray Liotta was on the plane and I was deciding whether or not to do this Broadway show. I was scared to do it. I had theater friends who were like, that's not the right time for that revival. And I don't know Ray Liotta at all, and rest in peace. But we had, you know, one fun thing sometimes about being an actor is someone's kind of like, hey, you're an actor and I'm an actor. Like when you can kind of jump ahead and have a conversation. And I said, yeah, I'm going to New York and I don't know. And he said, what are you going to do? Another like part in a movie? And, you know, I didn't have the movie career he had. But I thought, yeah, I mean, this is something big and scary and that's what I get to do now. I get to try that kind of thing because I can, and if it is even the worst version of itself, someone will probably, hopefully give me another chance. So that is what that kind of thing enables you to do, is take risks.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, you didn't feel any pressure to try and follow up such a defining role?
I didn't know what I wanted. And I of course, I still feel that pressure, or I feel that desire. I wish for something that, you know, comes along like that, I was tired, It was 7 years of like 14, 15, 16 hours a day. And they've found ways to make it quicker now. But like when we first started, we were shooting on film. Like I wanted some other thing. And I didn't really exactly know what that was.
Hold that thought. This is a great moment to hear how SoFi can support you on your financial journey. I want to buy crypto, but how do I know which crypto platform to trust? Such a valid question. When it comes to crypto, you don't want to trade on some random platform. Trust is important. Look for a platform that offers things like regulation and custody standards. That's where SoFi stands out. They're the first nationally chartered bank to offer crypto, which means those bank-level safeguards are built right into the platform. You can own crypto and bank, borrow, and invest all in one app. Plus, their in-app guidance helps you feel confident at every stage. Start your crypto journey at sofi.com/crypto. So after Broadway, you then step into your role as Sarah Braverman in Parenthood, which became another defining chapter in your career. What drew you to that role?
Well, first of all, I love the movie. I love Parenthood, the movie. All the elements were incredible. It's the creator of Friday Night Lights. It was already on the air. It was not the only lead, and I was a little bit scared, I have to say, given to do those long scripts was just a challenging, wonderful, but challenging long day. And I was looking for something that was not going to be all on me. And it was just just speaking of worlds, it was more improvisational. It was more these large group scenes where everybody's talking all over each other. It was just a grand time.
Yeah. And your character in Parenthood is dealing with some real financial instability, moving back home, figuring things out. Did you feel like that was actually more reflective of real life than what we normally see on TV?
Real life, yes, but I would get frustrated by that because I was such a hard worker, and at times I was like, what is wrong with this girl? Just go get a job. And I would have these conversations with the creator, and he's like, some people, they just they have a tougher time getting it together. And that's the role she played in the family, is sort of she's doing different things, and she's not the kind of go-getter that, Lorelai was. And everybody relates to that, right? No matter our work situations, relate to just having a tougher time and needing your family. And so that was who she was.
Yeah. And quick pivot, you built a successful career at your second act as a writer. How does making money from writing compare to acting?
It's a lot more work for a lot less money, but it's yours. Mm. It's my, succeed or fail. It's on me. I know there's a range of how, especially actors who work in memoir, some is to as told by, some is they get a partner writer. I was like, no, thank you. I do not want any. And to the degree that my editor was like, can I please edit the book? That's what my job is. It's like, I'm not helping you. I'm just doing my job. But so I like that. I like, just kind of doing something on my own.
Mm. At this point in your career, is your income still very unpredictable? How do you manage that? Or has it kind of leveled out a little bit?
It's very unpredictable because I would say what you don't know, it's just not the same business. That is unexpected. So yes, the innate in being an actor, you have these gaps and there is no real job security. I think at this point, I have worked enough to believe that I will continue to work. I had a wonderful movie I was in last year. It's just different. It's just a different, and I still feel compelled artistically to do this other stuff, which, brings me some sense of security. But yeah, it's not the job you do because you want to know what your salary is going to be 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Lauren Graham, what makes you feel rich?
Time. I mean, I think, a day, a week, a summer it is rare in my business to know something is coming. Those are really fun times when I'm not going to work tomorrow, but I know the job is coming. I have something I'm doing and, whenever. And I just really value having nothing, nowhere to be, and nothing to do. It's so fun when I can't afford it.
Lauren, thank you so much. That was
Thank
such a
you.
great conversation. Talk to me a little bit about any upcoming projects you might have. What are you most excited about?
I am working on a Gilmore Girls book with Amy Sherman Palladino, in which we want to tell any stories that haven't been told. We want to talk about what that experience was and is and might continue to be. And then I have a couple of writing projects that I'm doing on my own. And I'm just excited to be surprised by whatever comes next.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching Richer Lives. If you picked up something from Lauren's story, drop it in the comments and make sure to subscribe so you can keep building your own richer life. See you next time.
Pre-order of that book ASAP.
It's gonna take a while because she's real busy.
Oh.
It has been announced though, so I can talk about it, but I'm always like, nobody sit by the Kindle.